For most people outside of the crypto space, today will probably be seen as the day that the Moon Boys got diddled. The day that the Moon Boys went silent. But what if I told you this news with CZ, with Binance, with Kraken, with the SEC and the Department of Justice? What if I told you that it actually wasn't bullish? What if I told you, in fact, that it was actually mega bullish? And that's exactly what I want to start off this video talking about here, with some very big news coming out over the last 48 hours. In fact, a lot of things specifically that to me only mean one thing, and to me that are signaling we're getting closer and closer to something very big here. With just about 7 weeks until the the deadline for these Bitcoin spot ETFs to be approved, around the first week of January, on January 10th, 2024. What is going on right now, right? I think it's very clear. And I think it's even, 20, 30, 40% even more clear, where I'm like 95% confidence right now, honestly, of my opinion on what's happening here. In fact, I'm even probably higher than that, but let's say 95%. I'm 95% confident that what's going on right here is just way more simple than I think people want to admit. So we're seeing the SEC continue to crack down on exchanges. This is like the second time I think they're suing Kraken. They're currently in litigation with Coinbase. They lost their lawsuit against Ripple. They lost their lawsuit against Grayscale. Very likely these lawsuits and any further lawsuits are going to be going that same direction. But now today we have CZ apparently resigning as CEO and basically having to forfeit about $4 billion and not be the CEO of Binance ever again, or really be involved with Binance ever again. But really, what does this mean? Is this bearish or is this bullish for the Bitcoin price? Well, I think there's only one way to look at it, because all of this enforcement has been going on. Yet, through the worst of it, it is very clear that Bitcoin is not a security, and the SEC has absolutely no jurisdiction or anything. They have no ability to do anything negative towards Bitcoin itself. And Bitcoin, does it look like what's going on is going to push the Bitcoin crypto out of the US, or Bitcoin specifically out of the US? Or does it basically look like they are welcoming it, however, cracking down on everything? Now, I don't agree with the SEC. However, one thing is it's just objectively true, and that's it. There's tons of scams in the crypto space. There are tons of projects, tons of companies that even just 1 year ago were considered legitimate, and people thought they were legitimate. Things like FTX, which I never once promoted. I literally have not even been on the site, right, this entire time. Yet, I always thought, something weird about it. It feels like it came out of nowhere. It's just whatever. I'm already using a bunch of other exchanges. There's no need for me to do another one. And so I was never involved with FTX. But if I were to look back honestly and say, was it obvious that FTX was kind of scammy? Almost a little bit, right? It almost seems like it came out of nowhere, and kind of besides the point. But the point is, a lot of people thought that FTX was like a legitimate exchange. And in large part, it kind of was. It was just run into the ground. Sam Bankman-Fried, on one hand, was very intelligent. SBF was very intelligent, but also incredibly dumb. In fact, maybe he was just Adderall addicted, and that's where everything went wrong, just being an addict, right? Maybe that was his big downfall, was just being addicted to Adderall. But obviously, he made a lot of mistakes, and he's in the process of paying for them. And that was exactly 1 year ago, back in November of 2022. Fast forward 1 year, November of 2023, this same man who was largely responsible for his exchange collapsing because CZ of Binance tweeted some things that ultimately, within literal hours, made FTX users start pulling out their funds and directly contributed to the collapse of FTX, right? CZ absolutely had a hand in it. And that can't be denied. And now exactly 1 year later, it's almost like Gary Gensler from the SEC, who was tight with SBF. It's almost like, this is maybe some sort of payback or something like that. Ultimately, I think the best thing that's happened to the crypto space in the last year is SBF and FTX getting called out and collapsing. I think they were probably one of the worst actors crypto has ever seen. And I think them being discovered as scammers, manipulators, is one of the best things that has single-handedly ever happened in crypto. Think about this. If FTX was still around today and the exchange was still fine and one of the top exchanges, which today it still might be, because I have no doubt the SEC was probably going to go after Binance, but considering how close SBF and FTX Alameda was with Gary Gensler, I don't necessarily think they would have really gone after FTX, especially considering how much money he donated to politicians in the U.S. So the point being, I think it's possible FTX could have been the number one exchange in the U.S. right now. And I think we are blessed for that not to be the case, because they were not good faith actors. And I ultimately, this is my opinion, which is supported by evidence, I ultimately believe that FTX was sort of an inside job to basically hurt crypto from the inside, which if you want to damage something, that's a beautiful, amazing way to damage something, doing it from the inside, potentially the most destructive way of doing it. And luckily, it took multiple efforts, multiple attempts, multiple big names to contribute to FTX collapsing, but CZ was a big part of that. And CZ now, as of today, is resigning from Binance and will no longer be operating Binance. And now, I don't think this is bad for crypto at all. I think there's some good and bad with most things, and I think this is a more nuanced topic. But really, here's the deal, right? Binance is a Chinese company. There are billions, trillions of dollars that potentially want to get into crypto in the next couple of months as we begin the next bull run. Keep in mind, a lot of people are understanding and they're aware of the Bitcoin halving and how that contributes, at least theoretically and historically, to Bitcoin bull markets. So these trillionaires have probably spent 5 minutes to learn about the Bitcoin halving, and they understand that a potential similar run to 2020 and 2021 is about to start in the crypto market. And they want to be the ones to sell you the Bitcoin. They want to be the ones that make that money from the fees and benefit from it, just like CZ did. So, and that's people like Larry Fink at BlackRock, and it's all these other applications of Bitcoin spot ETFs that are like, there's like 10 or like 12 of them. All of these companies, all of these trillion-dollar asset managers and multi-billion-dollar asset managers want to be those people, right? So the SEC, and again, some of this is speculation. I'm sure some of this might end up being true, and we might even find out in like a month or so or years from now, who knows? But is it so crazy to think that maybe, and in fact, it's not really crazy. I believe they've even just basically come out and said this to, not directly, but if you put things together, is it so crazy to think that they just want to clear out all of the crypto native people, all the people that have been here from the beginning, all of the people that have been making these billions and billions of dollars during each bull market, clear them out. They'll be the ones to sell the crypto, the Bitcoin. They'll be the ones to get the fees, and they will make billions from it. And does it make sense that maybe they are waiting to approve a Bitcoin spot ETF until all of those actors are out, and people like BlackRock or Larry Fink at BlackRock and these other Bitcoin spot ETF applicants are the ones that benefit from the next bull market the most? Not a very crazy thing to think is happening, right? And like I said, I think if you spend an hour even researching a little bit about what's been going on, I think that's one of the most obvious conclusions. These banksters, they rarely ever lose. And I think they are not going to want to lose out on this opportunity. Tony the Bull tweeted as well this. BitMEX CEO Arthur Hayes, do you remember this? Back in 2020, he left BitMEX, got charges in the U.S., and shortly after, There were multiple things that happened. I'm not saying this is like BitMEX CEO Arthur Hayes left, and then all of a sudden we entered the biggest bull market. However, the timing was very similar, honestly, to now. And getting certain actors out of the space is the goal of some of the powers that be. And the SEC directly, I believe, has an interest in this. Matthew Hyland also points out here the whole space has been de-risked greatly this year. Whether it's things like FTX collapsing, whether it is what happened just with Binance, we also had BlockFi, Terra, Celsius Network, Voyager, Three Arrows Capital, Gemini Trust, HODLNOT, hundreds of companies literally run by frauds and scammers. And here we are a year later, we are in a much less risky place because a lot of these bad actors have either collapsed, completely failed, gotten arrested, so on and so forth. And I'm sure there's still even going to be maybe some smaller fish that get fried over the next couple of months too. But CZ, Binance, the literal biggest crypto exchange in the world, there is at least some resolution to that story. And the Binance FUD, the fear of like, okay, FTX collapsed, it brought us down to, we were at like the 20 to 25K range. It brought us down to about 15K. Imagine if Binance collapses, it's bigger than FTX. Will that bring us down to, a new price? Well, I think today kind of gave us a resolution of some of those fears. And I think time will tell really how impactful it'll be in shaping this space. But ultimately, I think the core thesis of the SEC really wants to clear the playing field to let the big boys in, like BlackRock. I think that's the most simple and obvious explanation here. Now, is that good or bad? Well, I would say it depends on how you look at it. If you're bullish on Bitcoin, this to me looks like it's going to be a very big driver of adoption of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is legitimized, which many people have been like wanting, they've been desiring this, craving it for years. If Bitcoin is legitimized and you can, put Bitcoin in your retirement, you can have access to Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form, and anybody can have access to it, and it becomes mainstream, and there's no more stigma around it, and it's it's seen by the elite as just as legitimate as everything else. It's likely that the price will appreciate massively. Now, with that being said, I think that there's one glaring thing that I think that stands out to me and many people as well, is that I personally think this is like, I've been feeling this way for a while, and I think it makes more and more sense. I think this is going to be like the last bull run to truly make like life-changing wealth from. I think this looks like the last opportunity. I think it's going to be insane. I think it might be the craziest bull market we've ever seen, and it might defy expectations and be way different than it's ever been. But I also ultimately think this bull markets for Bitcoin as we know it, I think this could be the last one in the sense of Bitcoin bull markets as we know them. And the more and more that I'm, every month that goes by, I feel more and more assured or more confident. That just looks like the way we're going. I'm not saying whether I like that or not. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It just looks to me like that's what's happening. So definitely worth noting. I think today's a very big day. It's, there are some days, there's some weeks where nothing happens, months go by, nothing happens. And then there are some weeks or some days where everything happens. And it seems like more and more is happening. And we're getting closer and closer to the big event, which is the halving coming up too. Also January 10th, these spot Bitcoin ETF approval deadlines. I think these next few months are going to be absolutely insane. Absolutely wild. And looking back a year or so from now, even just watching something like this or reading tweets or whatever, I think we're all going to be pretty blown away, I think, by what's coming. So with that being said, Bitcoin price itself is honestly holding up fairly well. It's still right on the 21-day moving average. The longer we stay here, the more likely I think we could have a breakdown, which absolutely is not a bad thing. I've been talking about this for weeks. For example, look at the support right around 30 to 32,000, even on the volume on the VPVR. I think a retest of this level at some point is literally the healthiest thing that could happen to Bitcoin. I have no idea if it will happen, But I think that the healthiest thing Bitcoin could do right now is dump, right? Sounds counterintuitive, but if you're experienced, then you understand why that would be healthy. And yeah, really, that's the main thing I wanted to highlight with that. I think today, though, more so than anything, it further validates the thesis of what is happening to the US markets, how they're really trying to incorporate crypto, because they would not be going through all this trouble. They would not be doing all of this if there wasn't a greater play. And I think that as time has gone on, it's been revealed to us what that greater play is. And that's really that Larry Fink, BlackRock, all these other people, they want to gobble up the money that is about to go into crypto. They want to gobble up the fees. They want to make billions. And if crypto continues along the trajectory that it's been going for the past 10 years, there's going to be a ton of money for these billionaires and trillion-dollar companies to make. There is so much money to be made in this upcoming bull market. And being that exchange or that institution that sells the crypto, it's like the people that sold the shovels during the gold rush. There is so much money to be made for those individuals. And so these trillion-dollar institutions are about to make a massive amount of money. So in a sense, they want this bull market to come as well because they will directly benefit from it. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one. And I think that very much aligns with this whole crypto story right now. But if you are interested in signing up or trading or buying altcoins, getting any crypto in general, you can sign up with my links below to FTX and BITGET. Without any further ado, that's it for me.